I'm Dezso. So again, this is a talk I'll be giving in a couple days in China. Just so you know, like I said, they're really trying to expand their infrastructure. In the United States, we have about 24,000 airports, I want to say. We've got about 50 in every state. 2,400 airports, I should say. 90% of our flights go through, 99% of our flights go through about 60 airports. The rest of them sit out there and don't do much. China, once it gets closer to that, so they're now training lots of air traffic control people, 20,000 pilots. They just built, a lovely new airport in Hong Kong. Their plan is to expand to have an airport in every county by the year 2020. And the airspace rules, right now it's been completely controlled by the military, but they're going to start people, they can say a day in advance, I want to fly from here to here. And that's really so that businessmen can travel around a lot faster. The other thing is they're building their infrastructure for manufacturing. Obviously, China is the factory that we're relying on at this point. So what's happened is, this is a legacy airplane. If you go look at a Cessna, they run with this engine in it. This engine is now a Chinese engine. You're required to buy an engine from China right now to put it into your American airplane because the United States has some very strict laws as far as liabilities. This engine manufacturing company, which started in the 30s, they finally threw their heads up and said, screw it. The Chinese bought it. So now they own Continental Aircraft Engine Company. They just bought a big engine company in Dallas called Superior. They bought a carbon fiber manufacturing company out of Europe called FACC. They bought Cirrus Aircraft, which was the #1 selling airplane in the world, is now a Chinese company based in Wisconsin, I believe. They bought Epic Aircraft, which was in Chapter 7, after Chapter 11, Chapter 7, they bought that in bankruptcy. It's probably the best single-engine plane you can get. And then Mooney, which is a legacy airplane company, has been around for many, many years. Same thing. They were down to having 10 employees because the economy is so bad here for airplanes, and the Chinese are snagging these things up. So now they have all the IP that these guys have put together for the last 50 years, and they now own Mooney Aircraft, and they bought Angstrom Helicopters, and they bought this guy Hamilton. He has an experimental aircraft company called Glassair, which is a very fast plane. Now it's a Chinese company. So they're making a lot of inroads. My friend runs this company. It's called Icon. It's sort of the darling of the U.S. Aviation industry right now. It's pretty much under Chinese control, and I expect them that they will, I can't actually say this, but I would expect that there will be some substantial transfer of this company into Chinese hands, and they're actually being manufactured by Cirrus. So on the good side, those are small planes. What I'd like to do is, if I have any influence over these people, I'd like to point them towards the direction of the electric planes. This is an Airbus plane, which is being powered by a couple electric motors. It recently flew across the English Channel. And this is another one from Germany. This is what you call a certified engine. Once these guys take the time to say this engine's very good and they do a lot of testing on it, you can use it in airplanes that you can sell rides with. So you should expect an airplane ride that used to cost you $100 will cost you about $4. That does an enormous amount when you want to say, well, is it $100 to fly from Burbank to Orange County, or is it $4? Expect that kind of a change because you're not going to be burning up fuel and doing the maintenance it used to do. And this is the kind of thing that could happen in China where the air is so bad. There's 4,000 people a day die on the east coast of China because of bad air pollution. This is another Airbus. This is an aircraft with electric motor in the back, and it's a two-person motor glider, so it can basically fly very efficiently. This is one out of Slovenia. The Slovenians are taking the lead on this. It's a two-person aircraft, all electric. They're building them now as trainers. You probably know that Santa Monica Airport is constantly under hassle because this makes so much noise. People don't want the airplanes flying over their houses. I would rather see, before they shut the airport down, that they require that every plane there be electric. It drops from about 120 decibels down to, I want to say, 58. So it'd be have a hard time complaining about these electric planes. The other thing is that you're able to do a lot of wacky things with these planes because the motors are very flexible and they don't need to have a lot of cold air blowing into the front of them like a normal aircraft. There's another one out of Pipistrel, and this one's out of China. These guys, Unique is the name of the company. They're a model airplane company. It's a radio control plane company. So the guys that were just saying, like, wait, we make these model planes all day, but we really just want to fly ourselves. Can't we just make exactly the same thing bigger? Well, the answer is yes. And so now they all have these planes, and this is the owner here, and that's Eric Lindbergh. He's a friend of mine that is probably the biggest proactive guy as far as getting people to make electric planes. His grandfather, of course, flew across the Atlantic way back when, and that's a $40,000 plane. You plug it in, you fly it, and it's got a little electric motor on it. This is one from Joby Aviation. Joe Ben Bivert is a guy up near Santa Cruz, and he made this motor. He has a company called Joby Aviations for vertical takeoff stuff. He's a very interesting guy, and this is like an $8,000 electric motor on a $20,000 plane, and this guy flies this thing around all day long for about $1 an hour. Most airplanes cost you between 100 and 140 an hour. This costs them $1 per hour to fly. This is a very tiny little fully aerobatic electric plane here. And this is kind of an obvious test. These are some German guys that took a lot of quadcopter motors and they attached it to a rig, and they set this guy on a yoga ball. So they did the kind of thing that I hate seeing people do, is they took that and they parlayed it into a 2-seat aircraft. So it's a general philosophy for people. Every time something works with 1 seat, that you have to make 2 seats, and then it gets very complicated and very big and very expensive. So, but that's what they did, and that's where it's headed. A vertical takeoff machine. I want to say something about this. Before these things get the perception that these should become ubiquitous, they're not actually allowed anywhere. The problem with these things is that the blades are so small that if they stop spinning, this thing's going to fall out of the sky and land on your head. You have to be able to fly in a manner that allows you a safe landing if you want to fly over people. So there's stuff here that's fairly experimental, but it's experimental in a way that they would not be allowed to fly over your head. And this is one of them. This is an airplane that is allowed to fly over your head because it has wings. If the engine quits, keep going. This is also an electric plane that's retrofitted into a very classic 1980s design. This one got all the headlines out of, Consumer Electronics Show in January. This is called, it's the EHang Corporation. I think anytime you put a seat in something, people care much more than a quadcopter. Again, very illegal, but the bottom line is that laws can be changed to fit things, but it's all very experimental. This is a solar panel. Obviously the size of my thumb. You can see that's my thumb. So that's 1 watt per gram that you can get out of that, which is better than a fully charged lithium-ion battery. And that will run for 30 years, where a lithium-ion battery will immediately start to go flat the minute you start turning on your a light bulb with it. So these have been used on small unmanned drones for some years. This is called the Puma. Made by AeroVironments up in Simi Valley. This thing used to fly for about an hour and a half on the batteries. Now it flies for 7 hours with the batteries and these solar cells. This is the aircraft here. And this is kind of causing a resurgence in pedal-powered airplanes that people built years ago. You need 1/3 of a horsepower, which is what we can do. Lance Armstrong can do better than that, but we can do about 1/3 of a horsepower when really cranking. And that's going to be 746 watts per horsepower, so about 1/3 of that. So around 250 to 300 watts. You can probably do that. And if you can do it sustainably, you can fly. But there's challenges that you have to do it sustainably, fly and pilot and everything. But now if you put a few of these panels up there without a lot of weight, you can start doing this. So people are now kind of in the experimental world, kind of pulling out these ideas of, hey, I could do a pedal-powered plane and a little augmentation with these solar cells and throw an electric motor on there, and they're good to go. This is a trailer with some solar panels on the roof, and what it says here is really nice. It says fly for free. That's kind of a new concept. Flying used to be very expensive. The idea is that now flying will actually be free, because you will simply, this is to hook to sailplane that you saw with the electric motor. You simply park your plane next to your trailer, and then you come back in a couple hours or whatever, and the thing has recharged itself. You take off, you fly. And in the other form of it, if you can afford some solar panels, put them on top of your hangar, you become the Sunday pilot. Historically, they had the thing called it's called the $100 hamburger. Pilots go out and they fly on Sundays. They fly somewhere, they buy a hamburger, they fly home. It costs them $4 for the hamburger and $96 for the flight. Well, now the hamburger is going to cost more than the plane. So this is one. This is a guy that used to be at AeroVironments. That's probably a $1 or $2 million wing, but he's been able to fly this around. He lives in Italy, and he flies this around for 12 hours at a time without spending anything. It's simply a 20 horsepower motor on it. So that's not a lot of energy required to fly these things. He also did something which I think is very uninteresting, and I didn't even know about it until the other day. He flew this plane across the United States in 1990 without using any fuel, and I never heard of it. And I'm pretty deep into this. So I think anytime somebody does a solar powered flight that's so high over your head that you don't know what it's there, it's as boring as an orbiting satellite. So my opinion on this is that if you're going to do some of this stuff, you have to bring it to the ground and you have to bring it to the people. Otherwise, it's this tree that falls in the forest. So, 26 years ago, this guy did something amazing, and who knew? This is the Antichrist. This is the new Dodge something, Too Much, the new Dodge Too Much. It's exactly like something that happened in the 60s. This is the kind of stuff that you get from a car like that. You get all these kinds of, this is Hurricane Rita, by the way, and we have the exact same challenge here. This is what happens when the mayor says everybody needs to get out of town for your own safety. 120 people died in the commute. 7 people died in the storm. They had 40-mile-an-hour winds, 1 inch of rain in Houston, and 120 people died driving out of there. This is the other future that we want to avoid. We cannot let our children have mullets, and we can't let them have GTOs. So the thing we need to do is we need to get them into some seriously good hybrid aircraft. Now, a duck is a hybrid. Don't tell me that a car that drives badly or flies badly. There wouldn't be ducks, okay, if it wasn't important for creatures to do a lot of things. If you're some of those evolutionary types, then, you know, I mean, I am in the United States. Some people don't buy that, but I would say that works. So here's a Slovenian plane again. This is a duck. This one drives down the street, flies through the air. This is the Maverick. It drives down the street, it flies through the air. This is the PAL V out of Holland. This drives down the street. This flies through the air. A bunch of guys in England, they were driving down the street and then they flew through the air. This is one in the U.S., same thing. So what's happening here is that if you can get down the street, it gives you certain advantages. This is Terrafugia out of Massachusetts. If you're able to get down the street, it gives you the ability to go from a really bad airport where there's horrible weather to one where there's a lot of good weather. It also allows you, if you think like there's going to be a storm tomorrow, you can fly your way out of Rita, you know, when the weather's good, and if things get horrible on the other side, you can stay on the road. You don't want to fly in bad weather. That's what kills people. This is me here. This is my flying motorcycle. That's on the ground. That's in the air. That was at Mindshare a couple years ago. This is a guy here in Southern California, KP Rice. He can drive it and fly it. And this is Burt Rutan, who famously made the Spaceship Two and about 30 or 40 other aircraft. This is his version of it. He called this the bipod. So that's a driving, flying thing. And this is another one that does the same. And there's another one from the 60s, actually from the 50s. Today you couldn't pass smog. Some of these old designs are really nice. And hey, they work. But today you couldn't pass smog checks with them. So you have to upgrade them a bit. But that thing worked. And then what happened because people said, oh, man, this is a stupid idea. It doesn't work. You didn't sell enough to make any money. It's always like you need an ulterior motive. So if you can fly, if you build these machines, it's sort of like you're a total failure if you didn't make a ton of cash at it. Well, if I want to make money, I'll sell OxyContin in Florida or maybe open like an Angry Birds themed pizza parlor. I mean, that's where the money is. But then what would I do with that money? I would fly, right? Okay, so I just try to cut to the chase. Another one here, this guy's in Germany, drives around. Okay, so that gives you an idea that there is an installed base of machines that fly and drive around. Okay, so now when you look at evolution, it's always defined exactly into jetpacks. So if man's really going to evolve in these jetpacks, well, this is the 1960s, a guy named Bill Suter flying out of Bell, and that's his jetpack, and he's flying out of the LA Coliseum here, and I'm talking fast, right? He's flying out of the LA Coliseum here in 1984. 1 billion people saw this flight. How long was it? Wrong. It was 14 seconds. And this machine, you're very good, though. I appreciate you being very close. This is owned by a guy named Nelson Tyler, and he's in Van Nuys. So we're at Evolution. We're in the world headquarters of Evolution. There's other versions that they wanted to fly a little longer because that maximum flight on the Bell jetpack is 23 seconds. Uses 90% hydrogen peroxide, costs you $900 per flight for 23 seconds, right? So this is a jet engine version of it, pretty gnarly. This is one, this guy looks scary, right? Anyway, this is a Williams jet. You stand on this thing. My friend built this one, and I know the pilot that's in this photo, actually. I met him. He's passed away. I know a lot of old guys. This is, yeah, that is exactly who he is. This is out of, this is in the Silicon Valley. These guys used to own Redwood City. This is Hiller Fairchild. That is the Hiller flying platform. This is a Ginsu version of the same thing, which is you stand above it. The bottom line is if these things are small, they're like surfboards. You can bend them, you move your weight around, and you can change the direction they fly. But the minute you start adding guns, bullets, bombs, enough fuel so you can go kill friendly natives and fly home, these things get so big they don't work. Imagine a 62-foot-long surfboard. Who the hell's going to drive that? Oh, just lean into it. No, it won't work. So what happens is as the military funds these things, and people come back to the party line, oh, no, maybe it has use for military or police or no. Fuck them. You know, I don't care about them. They have enough things to arrest us with. So the bottom line is that you go forward, you get the air jeep out of Paiseki because the army pays, right? Well, we don't want to do that. Here's a guy with his thumb in the air. This is a proper pilot out of France. He's an airline pilot, Yves Rossi, and he decided he wanted to fly, so he strapped a couple jets to the bottom of a wing. He jumps out of airplanes, and he gets to parachute in. Guess what he gets to do? He gets to do this all day long. He gets to have a lot of fun. He meets lots of nice people. Okay, that was his objective, and it works. Right? So this is another one out of Australia, Martin Jetpack. It's pretty big, but it works great. And the problem is if the engine, same thing. If it stops, they fall and they die. They have a parachute on it, which is nice if it works, bad if it doesn't. Then you get all these fun people involved in Dubai, and you get to sell it to the military, and then everything kind of goes off the road again. But anyway, there it is. They look excited. And then here's Nelson and our buddy. This is David. These guys are over in Van Nuys. David's got his new jetpack on, and he is flying around the Statue of Liberty back in February, and he can fly for 12 minutes. So there's no more jokes about, oh, they promised us jetpacks. Their jetpacks are here. It's just your problem now. You get a check, you call them, and you get it. So it's all happening, and it's all live. So back to the old flying car thing. I have to touch back on it real quick. So racing is a very important part of development. Every motorbike out there was designed. The rule is race it on Sunday, sell it on Monday. None of these things really work for getting around the streets. You can't put your helmet anywhere, whatever. It's kind of bad. But they win races, and then they sell bikes. This thing, by the way, this is high-tech sailing. This was developed in 1968, a book called The 40-Knot Sailboat. It wasn't read. It was read by a lot of people, but it wasn't done until 2010 when Larry Ellison's team actually took this 42-year-old book and said, okay, we should probably do this now. And the only reason they did it was because their other sail mast broke. And they had this kind of on the back burner. So they moved it forward, and that's how they won the America's Cup the first time. It was by using 42-year-old new tech. There's a lot of new tech out there that isn't perceived new until somebody uses it. Auto racing, bicycle racing, car racing, etc. So air racing, flying car racing, that's what we need. So I'm going to start doing this. This is my little spot out in the desert. If anybody's been to Burning Man, it's a very busy desert. If you want to be out near El Mirage, it's really close. This is a federally sanctioned race car park out here. You can drive as fast as you like. You can fly out there. You don't have to ask for permission. I used to run a land speed team at Burning Man. It's very difficult. So anyways, the idea is I'm going to run from there up to a place called the new, it's the El Dorado drone port being built outside of Boulder City, Nevada. And I'm going to start running along this corridor, which includes Route 66, a lot of airports. And my friend is going to be running the airport up at Boulder City, which is made for drones. And these are nerdy guys. So they all wear goggles and stuff now, but I do want to, there's a lot of drones out there. There's 325,000 registered airplanes in the United States. DJI sold 400,000 drones just at Christmas. And there's been more than 350,000 drones have been registered since December 21st of last year. So in the last few months, the drones that are registered as aircraft now outnumber all the planes in the U.S. So there's going to be a drone division. I'm going to let people come out and fly their drones because drones are gateway drugs to F-15s. I'm going to let them race. I've got to make, we're going to have an electric plane division for people that have electric planes, so we're going to make our own. This is one I've got on the drawing board, and this is my latest rendering, which you haven't seen. Alex, pay attention. That's the latest. I got that in yesterday. So I got a nice kid from Art Centers helping us do some design work. And then I have the unlimited category for old guys like me that happen to have their flying cars laying around already. This is Larry Page's. It flies, it's very secret, and it flies every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in Northern California at the Hollister Airport. So every time you want to know where it's flying, somebody's got a Hollister t-shirt on, they're actually telling you that that's where the Borg is flying their flying car. My friend Dave flies us in. I would say that Larry Page probably, a guy named Dave Morse is the pilot. I don't know if he's inside of it or outside of it, but I would also say that before Larry Page gets to fly this machine, he will probably have to be very sure that it works because I don't think his investors would want him risking himself. So, but it is his objective to have one, and that's a company's called Z Aero, and the ties are, don't believe a word I say because some of it may not be correct, but I don't know where these guys actually stand as far as how they finance the companies, but I do know that that money comes out of some people's wallets that have a lot, and it goes into this aircraft. So, and it happens to be in Mountain View, and they happen to have rented the biggest hangar in the United States, which is Hangar 1, for about $1 billion for the next many years. This is I don't know why I even have this slide in here. I should know. Anyway, there are things there, and there it is. Oh, yeah, so racing, flying, and exploring. The idea is that explorers are very valuable, too. This is a guy named, that's Lindbergh there. He flew in the 20s across the Atlantic. Anybody know this guy? He was more famous than Lindbergh. When Lindbergh was a little kid, this is Cal Wraith Rogers. He flew from the east coast of the United States to the west. Took him about 40 days. And he crashed about 16 or 20 times. He went to the hospital 3 times, and he died within a year. So he was dead 15 years before Lindbergh went across the channel. It was called the Fight of the Vin Fizz. He was sponsored by a soda company, an armor meat company, and for like 200 grand, he became the most popular and most famous guy in the United States. So I'll give you one second. And then, because people want to throw me off and they want to have the stage. So I'm going to do something similar because I like this kind of stuff. I'm going to go from Alaska down to Argentina, and there's a space in between there called the Darien Gap. So that's a road, it's 20,000 kilometers. In between, there's about 60 miles where there's no road. And I want to fly over that. So the same machine will be used to do all of it, and then I also like to do it without fuel. And that's me. So that's my objective is to kind of increase the awareness that Flying is a good thing. Get off the roads. Don't let your kids have mullets, and don't buy them any of these stupid, huge muscle cars. All right, thank you.
Yes.